Hello, Unity Albany folks. Greetings from the West Coast. I am delighted to be able to share some thoughts with you this morning. And here in what is hopefully the light at the end of the tunnel phase of our pandemic. But I'd like to kick off the talk on the subject of trust by hearkening back to a different tumultuous time in my life anyway. And that is that back in the 90s, I moved from San Francisco to Taos, New Mexico, where I lived for several years. And I had been a freelance writer for magazines and newspapers for about a decade when I moved. But as soon as I moved to the desert, work inexplicably dried up. Assignments drained away, editors stopped returning my query letters, my freelance career simply unraveled. Plus I ended up on food stamps. But in the throes of it, I kept hearing a still small voice telling me that there was something afoot, something I wouldn't understand for a while, and that all of this was happening for a reason that reason couldn't fathom. And to make a long and excruciating story mercifully short for you, it led to, among other things, the creation of my book, Callings. Right? But throughout it all, I kept hearing the refrain, "Trust the universe," in my head. All right? Which is a spiritual adage that on one hand triggered my skepticism, though I understand that doubt is not opposed to faith, it's part of it. But on the other hand, trust the universe has really a long and noble lineage. Let go and let God. Trust the process. Have faith. Don't push the river. Thy will be done. So, now, flash forward 25 years. For most of this past year and a half, which of course is characterized by the pandemic and the political and cultural turmoil, etc., I've been hearing that refrain in my head again, trust the universe, as I often do, really, during challenging periods in my life. But I've been trying to drill down into it a bit more this time around. And I've been wondering, what exactly does that mean, to trust the universe? What does that mean? What aspects of the universe are you trusting when you say you trust the universe? And of course, is this a skill you can build? Okay? So for instance, when and if you say you trust the universe, are you saying that you trust its benevolence? The feeling that you're somehow looked after, which is not, I think, something that everyone can trust. I mean, the notion that the universe has your back is much easier to get behind when luck has favored you with, say, a loving family, or good health, a good education, regular paycheck, a favorable race or sexual orientation. But it's considerably harder to get behind, I think, when your ration of luck includes being born into, say, a war zone, or poverty, or a violent family, or you're, a paycheck away from homelessness, or you're homeless. One is likely to fill you with the feeling of paranoia, which is the belief that the universe is conspiring against you, and the other is likely to fill you with the experience of pronoia, which is the belief that the universe is conspiring in your favor. All right? So, an interviewer once reportedly asked Albert Einstein, "Of all the questions you've posed into the mysteries of the universe, Mr. Einstein, what do you think is the most important question to ask?" And Albert Einstein reportedly said, "Is the universe a friendly place or not?" And I think how you answer that question is going to impact, if not determine, how your life unfolds, how you're going to interpret and respond to the things that happen to you, including events like the pandemic or the political upheavals. All right? Really, it kind of reflects your default position toward life, in a sense, either optimistic or pessimistic. All right? You might also consider asking yourself whether you believe the universe is a meaningful place. Because if you do, then I think it's easier to trust that whatever happens, at the very least, you're going to find some meaning and purpose in it. All right? But if by friendly we mean favorably disposed toward, which is really just the dictionary definition of it, favorably disposed toward, then I think clearly the universe is a friendly place. Because after all, it created us, gave us life, a habitable planet to live on, gave us each other, all right? And since we are capable of love and kindness and empathy, I think it stands to reason that the universe would also be composed of these qualities, if nothing else, through us, okay? But it's one thing to say that the universe has a heart, and I think it's another to feel it and to believe it, all right? To believe that even in your darkest hours, and I would venture to guess most of us have had a few of those in the past year and a half, that life is still, and perhaps ultimately, good and beautiful and generous. That even when the bottom falls out, in a sense, the universe provides you with earth to land on, okay, people to commiserate with, and a mind that can imagine better days, or at least remember them, okay? And given that each one of us is also a piece of the universe, in other words, this is not just out there somewhere, you might ask whether you yourself are a friendly place or not. All right, do you trust yourself? Do you treat yourself with compassion or judgment or indifference? All right, if your internal organs could speak, or that spiritual organ that we call a soul, or for that matter, the roughly 40 trillion individual bacterial beings that are inside each one of our bodies, and with whom we co-evolved, would they say that you're a friendly place or not? Because after all, you're the universe in which they go about their business. Would they trust your essential goodness and amicability, your empathy for them, your support of them? All right? Another example. When you say, or if you say that the universe, that you trust the universe, are you saying that you trust it to work in mysterious ways? Which I think it also does, though those ways may run counter to our own agendas, often do. And though I think it's possible to build your tolerance for mystery and uncertainty, say by studying the natural world, or the human psyche, or the creative process, or just your own dreams, because all of those are full of mystery, all right? In trusting the universe, are you saying that you trust that life supports growth, which it also does, although I think it's really a kind of a constant cycling back and forth between growth and decay, and growth and decay, and growth, etc. But what that means is that if you were to stick with any given crisis, long enough, that is, ride it out in full consciousness with all instruments turned to the on position, it would eventually lead you back to, or forward to growth. That a crisis will eventually resolve or evolve into what the mythologist Joseph Campbell called a directive crisis. All right, what Gail Sheehy, who wrote the book Passages, called falling up. And I think what the rest of us just call turning lemons into lemonade. All right. One thing I've come to trust about the universe is the repeating pattern of setbacks setting me up for breakthroughs. Okay, failures leading me toward opportunities, or what the philosopher Homer Simpson calls crisitunities. Okay, in fact, if you were to create a timeline of the growth spurts in your life, I would venture to guess you might discover, as I did when I did this exercise recently, that they are often accompanied by upheaval. All right? They're often precipitated by it and certainly accompanied by it. Okay? Are you trusting that the universe operates on a like attracts like basis? In which case, keeping your chin up in the midst of crises and challenges should set up a similar frequency in the world around you, which is really the basis, of course, of what people call the law of attraction. Or are you just saying, when you say you trust the universe, are you just really saying you trust your own resilience? Okay, your ability to choose how you're going to respond to whatever the universe throws at you. Okay? Now, the definition of trusting something is believing in its reliability. Okay, again, dictionary definition, believing in its reliability. So right off the bat, there's a catch here, because the universe is clearly reliable. I mean, the sun comes up, the sun goes down, gravity works, etc. But the universe is also reliably unpredictable. I'm thinking of chaos theory, or Murphy's Law, or the law of entropy, or, if you don't mind me saying so on Sunday, the famous shit that happens. Okay, so saying that you trust the universe has to include trusting that it is both reliable and unreliable. Okay, that it is chaotic and random in addition to being reliable. And these are forces, of course, that operate clearly on affairs down here on the home planet. So it means trusting the universe to be itself, right? Which is that combination of predictable and unpredictable, and that we ourselves will pretty much operate in a similar fashion throughout life, okay? Now, this requires a skill that I once heard someone describe as heroism redefined for the modern age, which is the ability to tolerate paradox, okay? To hold two seemingly opposing forces or ideas or energies or beliefs inside you at the same time and still retain the ability to function, if not hang on to your cookies and your marbles and your lunch, okay? So faith and fear, us and them, my will and thy will, head and heart, reliable and unreliable, you know, pick your duality, okay? And paradox requires that we bring these two opposing energies, seemingly opposing energies, together to talk to one another, all right? Tolkien, who wrote The Lord of the Rings, once said, it doesn't do you any good to leave a dragon out of your calculations if you live near him, okay? So, trusting the universe And of course, finding some meaning and purpose in any given manifestation of that universe, including events like the pandemic, may ultimately be a matter of staying in conversation with the universe, in co-respondence with it, all right? And there's lots of ways of doing that. Dialoguing with the dragons in your life, asking for dream guidance, listening to your body, honoring intuitions and synchronicities, spending time out in the natural world, meditation, prayer, journaling. Journaling is actually a beautiful tool for staying in conversation with the universe, with the grander scheme of things. I'm thinking of something that Ira Progoff once said. Ira Progoff is really one of the grandfathers of personal journaling. He created a system back in the 1960s called the intensive journaling process and wrote a book called At a Journal Workshop. And he said that the point of journaling is to go down deeply enough into your own well that you eventually hit the stream that's the source of all the wells, which I think is not only ravishing, but suggests that journaling is a perfect tool for being in conversation with the universe, with the bigger picture. And of course, just for, feeling our way through events like the pandemic or some of the turmoil that's going on at the moment, all right? One of my own responses to the pandemic, and specifically to the financial anxiety that it brought about, was to rearrange my morning schedule so that it now includes an act of trust, not just an abstract notion of it, all right? So my morning routines now include 15 or 20 minutes of playing the piano before coming in here into the office to work. And I'm doing that in part to demonstrate to myself that I can afford the time to do that. Okay, so an act of trust, not just a high opinion I have of myself, okay? In fact, really one of the diagnostics I use anymore to know whether I'm trusting the universe is when I make counterintuitive decisions like that. You know, when I respond to fear, say, with surrender rather than striving, okay? Or I choose passion over security, maybe more often than not. Or I make the growth choice over the fear choice, all right? Or try to allow things to happen more than always trying to make them happen. Make money, make a living, make ends meet, make headway, make a difference, make sense, you know, a little bit more allowing, all right? So the fact is, it's easier to trust the universe, I think, when we're doing our part, all right? Not just being patient or faithful or waiting for the universe to deliver, but being actively patient, as in God helps those who help themselves, as in trust Allah but tie your camel to a post, okay? As in luck favors the prepared mind, which is something Louis Pasteur told us, all right? Ultimately trusting the universe, well, here's one more thing. I mentioned waiting. The origin of the word wait is to watch. So waiting doesn't just mean sitting around twiddling our thumbs. It means being attentive, okay? Which is a critical conversational skill, all right? So you really, in a sense, you might say the universe needs to trust us as much as we need to trust it. But I think that trusting the universe may ultimately not even be so much a practical issue as much as a spiritual one. All right? Not necessarily about strategizing or creating new affirmations or doing behavior mod of some kind, all of which, of course, are great ideas. But I think it may ultimately be more a matter of sitting respectfully with things as they are. Granted, a high art, but sitting respectfully with things as they are, letting yourself feel what you feel in the midst of a crisis or a challenge, or a falling up experience, letting yourself feel what you feel without even needing to understand it, no less do something about it. And of course, having a certain forbearance for mystery and uncertainty and ambiguity, all right? Not just out there in the universe, but in here, in this universe, all right? And I think since spiritual practice is the work of creating a bond with whatever is greater than yourself, whether that's God or the natural world or community or just your own potential, I think these kind of practices can help with your connection and conversation with the universe and help you strike up a mutually friendly rapport with the universe, all right? Which might begin by answering Einstein's question. Answer Einstein's question for yourself. Is the universe a friendly place or not? And maybe explore a little bit about why you believe the universe is either a friendly or an unfriendly place. Okay? So I wish us all great good luck in forging a mutually friendly relationship with the universe and in continuing to navigate and even make the most of these rather tumultuous times, but also opportune times. And I'll add also that the webinar this afternoon is a very hands-on opportunity to explore your own relationship to trusting the universe and to trusting your own life and how to build acts of trust into it. So I hope you'll join us, as well as, of course, a community of fellow seekers. And thank you. Thank you again for inviting me to share these thoughts with you this morning. And I'm going to sign off now, and I wish each and all of us blessings.